Former Vice President and the PDP Presidential Candidate Atiku Abubakar yesterday presented documentary evidence that proved that his change of name from Saddiq to Abubakar was done on a Saturday. Addressing a joint press conference at the Atiku Abubakar Presidential Campaign Office, Paul Ibe and Phrank Shuibu said at the time Atiku Abubakar swore to an affidavit to change his name from Saddiq to Abubakar, courts in Lagos State did operate on a Saturday.
They, however, called on President Bola Tinubu to present documentary evidence, as they did, to show that the Government College Lagos existed in 1970 instead of 1974. Atiku's media aides presented several documents to prove that judiciary documents were once signed in Lagos on Saturday. Joining us is political strategist and public affairs analyst Demola Olarewaju, who is a special advisor, digital media strategy to Atiku Abubakar. Good morning, Mr. Olarewaju. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Osarogie. Good morning, Olivia. It's my pleasure to be with you.
All right. I want you to maybe give us clarity as to what exactly Atiku Abubakar said in the press conference. First of all, regarding the controversy about courts being open on Saturdays and all the changes of names happening on the weekend.
Well, I mean, it's in response to some of the media. The falsehood that has been put out in the media, by the Bola Tinubu media team. His response to the accusations, as we know, today the Supreme Court will begin the hearing on whether to admit the deposition, the documents from the Chicago State University in regards to the studentship of Bola Tinubu. And the response, in the media by some media houses, that have links to Bola Tinubu has been to say that, Atiku Abubakar himself once changed his name, that some of his documents bear a different name, to which our response was to produce a document showing the change of name from Saddiq Abubakar to Atiku Abubakar. And that is on record itself. The challenge has the response of the Bola Tinubu team is essentially to say that the accusation. I mean, it's like saying that someone is a thief, and then the person's defense is that you are also a thief. So Bola Tinubu has not attempted to defend his own records in the court of public opinion. He has not attempted to defend his record. What he's saying is that, Atiku also did the same, Peter Obi also did the same. So yesterday was an attempt to clarify, Atiku Abubakar's records, especially as regards the affidavit which was produced, upon which, they said that date was the Saturday. So how could it have been? And, we had to go into the records, into the archives of Lagos, and to show them that at some point in Nigeria, government business could be carried out on Saturday, especially in the year 1973. And we showed several documents that prove this point, that businesses of the courts, businesses of government were actually carried out on Saturday, and there's no controversy about that. And so now the ball is back in their courts, in the court of media opinion, asking them, challenging them on the records of Bola Tinubu.
Have a say in the matter. The Supreme Court, of course, is going to be hearing these cases from today. So let's get also your expectations. What are your thoughts on what the Supreme Court has before it, and what your expectations are?
I think the minimum expectation of anyone who believes in justice is that, in the first instance, the hearing on whether to accept the evidence procured from the United States court system, that evidence will be accepted. That's the minimum expectation. Atiku Abubakar fought valiantly within the law courts in the U.S. to ensure that these records are brought. That is, the Chicago State University documents, as well as the Chicago State University deposition of the registrar of Chicago State University. So we want the Supreme Court to admit this, so that the Nigerian court system can then clearly look at the personality or the persona of a certain Bola Tinubu. Will look at things like his gender. In that document, we'll see things like his date of birth. In that document, we'll see things like his schools attended, especially, the year of establishment of those schools. So we expect that the Supreme Court will accept these documents. Nigerians should remember Bola Tinubu fought valiantly in the U.S. court system, appeal after appeal to various judges, asking that this document should not be exposed, that if it is exposed, in his own words, in the words of his lawyer, like to cause him irreparable damage. Now the documents have been procured in the United States. We are trying to get them admitted as part of the evidence at the Supreme Court of Justice in Nigeria. So that is the minimum expectation, that the Supreme Court will accept it. Of course, Bola Tinubu's lawyer, Chief Wole Olanipekun, has also been fighting that these documents should not be accepted, that this evidence should not be allowed to proceed. I think, at the minimum, I expect that the Supreme Court justices, 5 men and 2 women, that they will, look at this and say, let the document be accepted. Let's look at it openly. If at the end of the day, whatever way the verdict goes, after accepting the documents, then that's fine. But for you not to even look at the document, I think Nigerians will know or feel that there's a sense that justice has been delayed or justice has been denied. So the minimum expectation from the hearing today, as the lawyers make the argument, is that the Supreme Court will say, okay, you know what, bring the evidence, let's look at the evidence, let's see what's in the evidence. Once that is done, I think Nigerians will have cause to be happy.
Demola, but we both know that there are many cases in Nigeria that part of what has kicked them out of court will be what is referred to as technical irregularities. And in this case, there is a possibility. I mean, we don't know. We can't preempt the court. We don't know what line the favor is, or the decision is going to turn in favor of. So you've said that the very minimum expectation would be that the court would accept fresh, quote unquote, fresh evidence, even though, there are arguments against that, saying that as is, the current position of the law is that fresh evidence should not be accepted at the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court should work with the evidence before it. In the event that the Supreme Court does not accept this fresh evidence, what next?
Well, there is still the substantial case to pursue, which is the substantial points of the appeal itself. As regards the acceptance of fresh evidence, the Supreme Court itself has ruled on various occasions that fresh evidence can be accepted. Even the Evidence Act, as modified over the years, the Evidence Act allows, fresh evidence to be accepted. There are 3 points that the Evidence Act suggests. The first point is that the evidence should not have been available as at the time the case was being prosecuted or being litigated upon in the lower courts, which in this instance is true. This evidence was just freshly obtained from it was obtained after the appeal court had delivered a judgment, so the evidence was not available at that time, so we couldn't have presented it at that time. The second point is that it must be evidence that is relevant to the case. This evidence is very, very clearly relevant to the persona of Bola Tinubu. It is the academic record wanted to be presented. That's the second standard for fresh evidence to be brought. The third evidence is that it should be shown that not accepting the evidence will not allow justice to be done, and that accepting the evidence will allow justice to be done. So we have a matter, we brought up the issue of forgery, that Bola Tinubu is not qualified to be president by reason of submitting forged documents to the court, and now the evidence is here. So we expect that between justice and technicality, that justice is what will be upheld. Yes, of course, technicality can always be relied upon to throw out, but we expect that at the Supreme Court, knowing the significance of this case, knowing the ramifications of this case, will accept this, at the very least, will accept the evidence, because the eyes of the world are on Nigeria. This matter brought a lot of attention, in the United States. Justice Nancy Maldonado had to say that, that she has received loads of emails from concerned Nigerians on this matter, and that she sees no reason why, in the interest of justice, this record should not be made public and this record should not be released. So we expect that at least the court will look at the document, look at the evidence. So throwing out the document, throwing out the evidence at this point will be, it will be prejudicial. It will be sort of injurious, to that process of justice itself. So between justice and technicality, we expect that justice will be taken. But if the part of technicality is followed, Nigerians will draw their own conclusions on the ability to get justice within the court system. But we still have the substantial issues, the prior issues of appeal, the prior points of appeal are still there, and the court case will also still go on.
Well, let's also have you talk about the expectations from the FBI documents, that are still being expected. I'm aware, from what I've read, the lawyers to the Nigerian president did try to maybe stall the release of those documents. And of course, the lawyer who, I think his name is Greenspan, who of course subpoenaed the court, has, tried to get them released before the Supreme Court ruling. So let's get, how effective or what, or what relevance that would be in this whole case and the whole situation. And of course, your quick thoughts, as quickly as possible on Nigeria's current state, exchange rates, petrol price. There's just so much going on that is, making life, hell for Nigerians.
Well, the FBI documents will further unravel the personality of Bola Tinubu. It's going to shed more light on his persona, on his activities, especially the matter leading to the $460,000 forfeiture within the U.S. court system. So the FBI documents are very important. Of course, it's not going to be brought before the Supreme Court, but in the court of public opinion, it's definitely going to sway a lot of things. It will help Nigerians to understand who the persona is, what the personality of Bola Tinubu is. And so we are eagerly expecting that. We expect that it should be released anytime from now. We expect that those documents will start to come out. From what we've seen, we do know that that there was an involvement, with the money laundering for a drug trafficking issue, in the United States. So light will be shed on that. What was the extent of his involvement with that ring, and so on and so forth. On the situation of the country, I think, we are all, feeling it. We are all seeing it. It's getting bad. It's getting worse. And although some people, especially sympathizers of the present government, have said that this was always going to be the situation, whether it was Atiku who took over, whether it was Bill who took over, whether it was Tinubu who took over. Yes, I agree that hard decisions would have had to be made. But the difference in the instance of Atiku Abubakar is that Atiku Abubakar would have, first of all, restructured the government, allow states to grow at their own pace, shed the weight of the federal government. Federal universities, federal medical centers, federal government colleges, they all should belong to the states. The federal government keeps on taking more and more load. And, as Bola Tinubu is struggling with the legitimacy crisis, he's trying to curry favor. And in doing that, he's also increasing the wages of the federal government. So he's announcing, conditional cash transfers. He's announcing increments in wages. He's announcing, the release of payments for the ASU lecturers in federal universities. All these things are going to, and in the same week, last week, that he announced some of these things, the Minister of Budget Planning came out to say that Nigeria is broke. We do not have enough money to even manage the current wage bill. So the first thing that any government should do is to downsize or to right-size the federal government. The federal government is too large. It's taking on too many responsibilities. We need a lean government. You cannot be saying, in the midst of poverty, worsening poverty of Nigerians, you cannot be purchasing SUVs for hundreds of millions for the legislators. I mean, if you didn't have a car as a legislator before coming there, then you can use your salary to buy it. Why should you use public money? People are abandoning their own SUVs. People are trying to buy sedan cars, smaller cars, because of fuel consumption. And some people are brandishing just simply by reason of being voted into office to serve the people. So Nigerians would like to see that we are not the only ones being called upon to make sacrifices. We are paying more. You just mentioned that in the north, that fuel is now being sold for about 680-something naira per liter. It is only going to get worse. Those who are in power should also make sacrifices, and that would have been the difference. Bola Tinubu, the government is not making those sacrifices, and I think it is very unfair to Nigerians.
That's the first time you've called in Bola Tinubu all through this interview. Thank you so much for joining us on the show this morning.
Thank you very much, Olivia. Thank you very much, Osarogie.